The human psyche is one where there are all of these checks and balances. We're always balancing one thing out with another. So we can have anger and outrage that is balanced by love and sweetness and on and on. And we've been in Libra season talking about the sign of Libra, and that is all about balancing. And as you know, we've been through some Libra shade, some of the shadows, and then we've also been through some of the gifts of Libra. And this week we are transitioning into Scorpio. Libra and Scorpio are enmeshed. They cannot have one without the other because they are side by side. So there's always some overlap, and we're going to talk about that this week. I'm Natha Perkins. This is Astrology for Awakening. I'm going through all of the facets of all of the sun signs, from Aries all the way to Pisces. And these are more than just astrology talks and teachings. They're designed to help you understand your own psychology, your own gifts and skills and challenges. Each of these astrological archetypes relates very specifically to something that you are working with all day, every day. And Libra is where we are in relationship, and we're all in relationship. We all have people we love. We all have people we want to see us and think that we're amazing and beautiful and attractive. And we all have difficulty within our relationships. Maybe we lack intimacy, or we don't know how to say no, or we don't believe that somebody loves us, right? So we've been talking about that all through Libra season. And now we go into Scorpio, which is, it's the next energy along the progression. And this is where we have to face some of the difficult parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that aren't so pretty, that aren't appealing and attractive. And a lot of it is the stuff that has lived under the surface for many years that we've been avoiding, but acts like that rock in the shoe. You know, you can kick a rock around in your shoe for quite a while, getting it so that it's somewhere in your shoe that you don't feel, but inevitably that pebble finds its way right underneath a toe or a heel, and then you've got to kick it again. So we look at Scorpio as if it is all of those energies that are the little pebbles within our psyche, within our existence, that eventually show back up and cause us some sort of pain or drama. So we're going from what should feel like ease and flow in the form of Libra into, oh my God, yeah, that's there too, right? Into Scorpio. So this is an edited talk from my 2024 podcast, season 5, Star Narrative series. I've put all of these together in a YouTube playlist called Astrology for Awakening. I've also been releasing these on the podcast Star Narrative, so you can listen. They're binge worthy. I would suggest that you dive in and listen to them whenever, wherever. You will always leave learning something about yourself. If you like my style and you would like to book with me privately or look at all of the ways that you can work with me, you can find me at electraastrology.com. And let's jump in. So we're going to talk about the transition between Libra and Scorpio. This is a really interesting transition because we go from Libra, and you've heard me say over the last 4 weeks that Libra is this embodiment of the things that we want. And we're seeking beauty. We're wanting to be seen. We are wanting the friends. We have the friends. We're in control. And that's great. But with Libra, we're still being nice. And we are still keeping things rather superficial. We are newly in our relationships. And so we are doing our flirtatious, shiny, look at how amazing I am and how amazing you are kind of thing. And then we hit Scorpio. And Scorpio is rough energy because Scorpio is where we have to go deep. It's where we have to face the monsters under the bed. Scorpio is a fixed water sign. And the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, are the signs where we must stay still and do the work. And the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, they represent the emotional work. And we know emotional work is probably the most difficult work to do because we never really know what's there. We don't really have clear solutions to it. We can do all of this work to heal and still get clobbered over the head when we get triggered. Like, it's not dependable work. It doesn't have a beginning point and an end point.
So when we get to Scorpio and we have to start looking at, what has happened to me in my past that has contributed to my baggage that I'm carrying around that is impacting me probably adversely in all of these relationships. And I mean relationships with humans, but I also just mean your relationship to something like your power, your purpose, your self-confidence, your identity, your emotions, your family, etc. The water signs are the intuitive signs. Each of the water signs has a different version of intuition that it works with. With the Cancerian water, we are working with being able to intuit what people need and then give it to them so that we retain a sense of power as a cardinal sign. With Scorpio, we are looking at being able to tune into the things that people don't want to talk about. With our Scorpio energy, we get really attuned to knowing that somebody's mad or knowing that somebody is having a shame response about something or feeling like, oh, the energy's off and it doesn't feel good and I don't know why. Like with Scorpio, that is how we tune in and feel. And then with Pisces, this is where we are tuning into more of the ethereal realms and we are getting the intuitive downloads and the mystical hits. So each of the three water signs has a very different layer or level or skill set when it comes to the intuitive abilities of water. So remember that Libra is air. So it's very mental and it's very fast moving and it's very superficial, but it is also accustomed to wanting things to feel balanced and wanting things to feel good. And as we transition into Scorpio, we get into this place where we realize it doesn't feel good. This is hard. This hurts. This is scary. And it's very difficult. Now, I don't want to say that Scorpio is all difficulty because it's not. Scorpio is also about developing a deeper sense of awareness. And when we know more, we know more. We all like to have extra information and we like to know the scope of a situation. It's like, tell me what I'm dealing with here. So then I know what approach to take. Before we get to knowing what approach to take, we have to actually face the things that are very fearful and scary. And the thing about Scorpio is that it is a pretty difficult archetype, of course, but it is also one that most of us slip into a lot because it represents the places where we are hurt and we have a reactivity to that hurt, to that pain, to that suffering, to that traumatic event that happened to us. And we are trying to protect ourselves from that happening again. So a lot of times our Scorpio fears will show up because we've been burned before, we've been hurt before. So with Cancer, we are largely looking at fears that are generated from before you even got here. So it can be things that were passed down the lineage, fears that your family of origin and back might have held on to. For example, if you descended from Ireland and your ancestors were part of the Great Famine, you might have fears around not having enough food. If you come from a family line where your mother or your grandmother felt abandoned by her family or her parents, you might have a fear of abandonment that kind of lives in your system that's unexplained because it may not relate exactly to your life, but there is something with our Cancerian fears where the fears don't necessarily come from this lifetime, but they come from our family line. Cancerian fears can also come from this lifetime, and they usually center around a fear for those that we love, a fear of not being safe, of not being secure. Scorpio fears are the fears that we experienced in this lifetime. So hurt, pain, suffering, trauma, abuse that happened all the way from in utero until now. And then Piscean fears are all about those what ifs and the existential fears around what if something really bad happens. And so we all have the whole combination of fears, but when we get to Scorpio, we have to start looking at how we defend ourselves in the current or how we have defended ourselves in the past from being hurt again. And we do this in a number of ways. I'm going to really elaborate on this in the Scorpio shadow episode. But I will say that as we are transitioning between Libra and Scorpio, that Libra deals with fears by being as attractive and appealing and gathering as many people close as possible. And we make this major shift as we deal with our fears in Scorpio, usually by being controlling, blaming, or else using things to numb. That's quite a shift from Libra, where we can pretend that everything is nice, to Scorpio, where there's really no hiding behind the coping mechanisms that we have, right? We can't just pretend that when we are using drugs or alcohol so that we don't have to feel anything, that it's okay. And we can't really pretend that when we are manipulating a situation that it's okay. I mean, there's this confrontational nature that we have to face when we're looking at Scorpio. And again, there's no judgment about how we all indulge in our Scorpio things, right? We're trying to do this to feel safe. This is almost like our primal defense mechanism. And Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. And remember, Mars is a warrior. And Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio, and Pluto is the great transformer. So both Mars and Pluto are like super strong energy. So we learn to be very, very strong. But whether we are creating the strongest defense systems against being hurt again, or dealing with the strongest of our awareness of understanding why we feel the need to defend, how we were hurt in the past, so that we can step into a stronger sense of power. So again, like we looked at in Aries season, we're looking at power dynamics, whether we are using true strength or false strength. And remember, true strength is where we are standing strong, knowing how powerful we are, because we know our boundaries. We know what is okay and what is not okay for us. We know what we are defending ourselves against. We recognize when we have slipped into reactivity. And we also recognize when we have slid into our defense mechanism, coping behaviors, and the unhealthy ones we see, like, oh, I'm doing that again. I don't want to do that again. So I'm going to take my power and I'm going to understand what's happening so then I can step into my true power. I'm strong enough and I'm not going to be scared of anything. And the things that I am scared of, I know that I'm going to be able to handle it. And then the false power, we are in that reactivity and we are in defense mode. And again, defense mode can look like gaslighting, dishonesty, addiction, power struggles, deflection. So the main point here is that we use Scorpio to our benefit when we are willing and able to get down into the nitty-gritty and see how that false power shows up. Because most of us are going to automatically use the false power because we're like, I'm trying to defend myself. I'm freaked out here. I don't want to get hurt again. And so I will do whatever it takes to avoid getting hurt. And then I'm in false power. The false power is what we're using when we forget that we have what it takes to stop the behavior. We're just ducking and dodging, trying to make sure it doesn't happen again instead of saying, hold it right there. I'm going to deal with this problem head on. You're not going to talk to me like that. You will not hurt me again. I will not hurt you again. And I will not just numb myself and kick this can down the road so that it comes out even bigger and worse when I finally address it. So the Scorpio energy can be very confronting. And a lot of us don't really want to look at this. When I'm working with clients, this is one of my favorite archetypes to look for in their chart. What's happening in their 8th house? How many planets do they have in Scorpio? What is their Pluto doing? What is Pluto in the sky doing? What is Mars doing? Because I feel that the lion's share of our issues pools up in those archetypes. No matter what we're working with, no matter what came before, however much self-awareness we have, what came from our family, our ability to be strong and create what we want, like all of that is a part of the picture. But if we have trauma from our past, and honestly, we all have trauma. This is a hard planet to live on. We all get let down. We get hurt. We are confused. We are raised by humans who are imperfect. We have a very imperfect governing body. And we come straight into Scorpio from Libra, where we learned that we have to scramble to prove our worth and our value, or else we're going to get dumped. So then we show up in Scorpio season. We show up in Scorpio and we're like, oh my God, we're nail biting. This is hard. I don't know what to do about this. I just know that I have a core sense of feeling endangered. And here's how I've learned to work with it. And usually we learn to work with it in pretty unhealthy ways, not all the time, but even if we do have some coping mechanisms, usually it is very easy to slip into our unhealthy coping mechanisms. Yay. But the beauty of Scorpio is that this is where we learn to introspect, understand our own psyche, our own psychology. Scorpio 8th house Pluto rules therapy, psychotherapy. And it also rules this idea of becoming so inherently strong and wise and powerful. And so we are developing awareness, and it is through that awareness that we transform in these beautiful, beautiful ways. So Scorpio is the transformer. It's where we begin to see it's not just me and my ego scrambling through this world. I have power. I have the power to change. I have the power to heal. I have the power to grow. And I have the power to be really, really powerful. So that's what we're going to be talking about as we move through Scorpio season. It's going to be a good one.
All right. Thanks for joining me, you guys. I hope that you learned something, and I will see you all soon.